Thank you for joining us for International Family Day. My name is Shiva.
And I'm Daniel.
Daniel and I first met in Toronto and have been married almost 23 years.
We've lived in 3 countries, Canada, the United States, St. Kitts Nevis, and in 8 communities, much of that time with our children.
I'm Nava.
And I'm Keon. We've been living in London, Ontario for the past decade.
Some of our interests include music, writing, being outdoors, and spending time with friends and family.
Let's start with our program today.
During the 1980s, the United Nations began focusing attention on issues related to the family. In 1983, the Commission for Social Development requested the UN Secretary General to enhance awareness among decision makers and the public of the problems and needs of the family, as well as of effective ways of meeting those needs.
In 1993, the United Nations General Assembly decided that May 15th of every year would be observed as the International Day of Families. This day provides an opportunity to promote awareness of issues relating to families and to increase the knowledge of the social, economic, and demographic processes affecting families.
According to the United Nations, international days are occasions to educate the public on issues of concern, to mobilize political will and resources to address global problems, and celebrate and reinforce achievements of humanity.
The United Nations theme for the 2021 observance of the International Day of Families is Socially Just Transitions Towards Sustainable Development, the Role of Digital Technologies on Social Development and Well-Being of All.
14 months into a pandemic, with all this time together, our family's thriving. Looking at our immediate family, I'm not sure about yours, we've realized that we have spent most of the past year on our technological devices. Whether it has been for school or work, entertainment with Netflix or rewatching previously bought DVDs, looking up recipes, connecting with friends and family on FaceTime, WhatsApp, Skype, or Zoom.
And here we are again on screens today as we use technology to connect during the pandemic. Digital tools have benefits.
They certainly do. To address the question posed by the United Nations, the short answer for our family would be to try to incorporate balance with our use of technology and our efforts to have technology-free time.
Like spending time outdoors, being in nature, getting fresh air, or biking around the neighborhood.
Spending time reflecting on why we're here and what role we can play while we're here.
Taking time to reflect on how to nurture the well-being of our friends, families, neighbors, and even ourselves.
In preparation for our commemoration of today, we chose to go back to the basics. Preparing for our talk gave us an opportunity to return to books, both paper and lots of digital books, to find quotations on family life in the Baha'i writings, to see what a Baha'i viewpoint might offer. As a humble contribution to a much larger social discourse about families, today's talk will be our family perspective, and we'll call it
Family, a cornerstone of unity.
Family, a cornerstone for unity. What's a cornerstone anyway?
Baha'is often talk about cornerstone as a symbolic reference to a particular stone laid by Abdu'l-Baha in 1912 to mark the beginning of construction of the House of Worship in Wilmette, Illinois.
That's just north of Chicago, where we used to live. I remember many years ago we visited and got a children's prayer book that's still in our collection. I love that prayer book.
Exactly. As I understand it, a cornerstone is an essential foundational building block upon which a structure stands.
So the structure is society, and the building block is the family.
Okay, I think we get it. Let's move on already.
Our goal for this morning is to share highlights from consultations we have been having as a family. We started with the basics of how a family comes to be, what constitutes a Baha'i marriage, guidelines, if there are any, for couples when making decisions, whether there are specific roles in a family, and how the family functions as a cornerstone for unity.
Let's start with a quotation from Baha'u'llah about marriage.
And when he desired to manifest grace and beneficence to men and to set the world in order, he revealed observances and created laws. Among them, he established the law of marriage, made it as a fortress for the well-being and salvation, and enjoined it upon us in that which was sent down out of the heaven of sanctity in his most holy book. He saith, Great is his glory. Marry, O people, that from you may appear he who will remember me amongst my servants. This is one of my commandments unto you. Obey it as an assistance to yourselves.
For a Baha'i marriage, the first step involves a woman and man becoming well acquainted with each other's character and deciding to marry. Each exercise the utmost care to become thoroughly acquainted with the character of the other, that the binding covenant between them may be a tie that will endure forever. Their purpose must be this, to become loving companions and comrades, and at one with each other for time and eternity.
So from the beginning, we are to keep in mind that the person we choose will be our companion and comrade, not just for this life, but for all eternity. No pressure, right?
Okay, yeah, maybe lots of pressure. So 2 individuals decide to get married. To have a Baha'i marriage, one needs the consent of 6 individuals. Those individuals are
The bride and the groom,
Bride's parents and groom's parents.
only if they're alive.
yes, obviously, if they're alive, they can get consent.
It's pretty cool that when you get parents' consent, if living, you're expanding the unity from the get-go. Instead of just working on building unity between the bride and the groom, you start the process with the extended families too.
You're exactly right, and the unity just keeps extending. The specifics for a Baha'i wedding after getting the consents are to have 2 witnesses hear the bride and groom recite the verse, "We will all verily abide by the will of God."
And that's the start of a new family, so we don't have to be alone.
Yes. Over 100 years ago, Abdu'l-Baha spoke here in Canada, in Montreal, about how we as people can't survive on our own.
It seems as though all creatures can exist singly and alone. For example, a tree can exist solitary and alone on a given prairie or in a valley or on the mountainside. An animal upon a mountain or a bird soaring in the air might live a solitary life. They are not in need of cooperation or solidarity. Such animated beings enjoy the greatest comfort and happiness in their respective solitary lives. On the contrary, man cannot live singly and alone. He is in need of continuous cooperation and mutual help. For example, a man living alone in the wilderness will eventually starve. He can never, singly and alone, provide himself with all the necessities of existence. Therefore, he is in need of cooperation and reciprocity.
You know, the pandemic has really brought this fact home to so many people, that we as human beings need continuous cooperation. We all live on the same planet and are like a family.
Abdu'l-Baha continues, the mystery of this phenomenon, the cause thereof, is this, that mankind has been created from one single origin, has branched off from one family. Thus, in reality, all mankind represents one family. God has not created any difference. He has created all as one, that thus this family might live in perfect happiness and well-being. We are one family, and each one of us is a member of this family.
As I said before, I think we're starting to realize how connected we all are.
I agree. You know, Abdu'l-Baha gave a lot of talks about families and how important it is to have love and agreement even in a single family unit. He said, if love and agreement are manifest in a single family, that family will advance, become illumined and spiritual. But if enmity and hatred exist within it, destruction and dispersion are inevitable.
Now, I know that we don't always agree with each other. And frankly, I don't know of any family who always agrees. How are we supposed to manage different points of view when we're unable to agree?
Well, the Guardian says, One of the keys to the strengthening of unity is loving consultation. There are nevertheless points on which, from time to time, agreement cannot be reached. This dilemma is resolved by a majority vote.
Okay, so that's the four of us in the family. But how can there be a majority vote when it's just a husband and wife?
The guardian specifically responds to that concern when he says, there can, however, be no majority where only two parties are involved, as in the case of a husband and wife. There are, therefore, times when a wife should defer to her husband and times when a husband should defer to his wife, but neither should ever unjustly dominate the other. In short, the relationship between husband and wife should be as held forth in the prayer revealed by Abdu'l-Baha, which is often read at Baha'i weddings. Verily, they are married in obedience to thy command. Cause them to become the signs of harmony and unity until the end of time.
Okay, so I figured this out. A man and a woman decide to get married. They need 6 people's consent with goal to form a unit towards unity. Come on, unity?
Unity. Yes, yeah, that's the goal.
So far, we've talked about the importance of really getting to know who you're going to marry, realizing we're all interconnected, and the importance of consulting and taking turns with decision-making when there's no majority.
Let's move on to the rights of individuals. Abdu'l-Baha says, according to the teachings of Baha'u'llah, the family, being a human unit, must be educated according to the rules of sanctity. All the virtues must be taught in the family. The integrity of the family bond must be constantly considered, and the rights of the individual members must not be transgressed. The rights of the son, the father, the mother, none of them must be transgressed. None of them must be arbitrary. Just as the son has certain obligations to his father, the father likewise has certain obligations to his son. The mother, the sister, and other members of the household have their certain prerogatives. All these rights and prerogatives must be conserved, yet the unity of the family must be sustained. The injury of one shall be considered the injury of all. The comfort of each, the comfort of all. The honor of one, the honor of all.
I'm starting to see how family life is to be used as a cornerstone for unity. Rights and prerogatives must be conserved while at the same time sustaining family unity. We get to practice this in our immediate family and then expand the model for the larger community.
Yeah, I think that the world would definitely look different if the injury of one person was seen as the injury of all, and the comfort of one person was seen as the comfort of all.
We're starting to see that unity is also about diversity, the awareness that everyone has their part to play.
The Universal House of Justice specified even further the specific duties of all family members when they say that a family is a very special kind of community. The members of a family all have duties and responsibilities towards one another and to the family as a whole. And these duties and responsibilities vary from member to member because of their natural relationships. The parents have the inescapable duty to educate their children, but not vice versa. The children have the duty to obey their parents. The parents do not obey the children. The mother, not the father, bears the children, nurses them in babyhood, and is thus their first educator. Hence, daughters have a prior right to education over sons.
This is a point to highlight that each person in the family has a specific role.
So I don't have to stay in school since I'm your son. Fantastic.
Not quite, but nice try. Baha'u'llah says that if finances prevent all children from receiving an education, and a choice has to be made between a daughter and a son, to prioritize the education of daughters. In your case, you get to be educated too.
Hooray, lucky me.
There's another letter written on behalf of the guardian, especially about families in our part of the world. The guardian, in his remarks about parents and children's, wives and husbands' relations in America, meant that there is a tendency in that country for children to be too independent of the wishes of their parents and lacking in the respect due to them. Also, wives in some cases have a tendency to exert an unjust degree of domination over their husbands, which, of course, is not right, any more than the husband should unjustly dominate his wife.
I'm hearing about respect for parents and also for husbands and wives. How exactly does respect relate to family unity?
Abdu'l-Baha says, "Note ye how easily, where unity existeth in a given family, the affairs of that family are conducted, what progress the members of that family make, how they prosper in the world. Their concerns are in order, they enjoy comfort and tranquility. They are secure, their position is assured, they come to be envied by all. Such a family but addeth to its stature and its lasting honor, as day succeedeth day."
That's pretty incredible to think that being united has such far-reaching effects. To prosper in the world, we need to cultivate that family unity.
Abdu'l-Baha continues to talk about how learning these strategies in our family is the first step and how expanding this further can impact countries. And if we widen out the sphere of unity a little to include the inhabitants of a village who seek to be loving and united, who associate with and are kind to one another, what great advances they will be seen to make, how secure and protected they will be. Then let us widen out the sphere a little more. Let us take the inhabitants of a city, all of them together. If they establish the strongest bonds of unity among themselves, how far they will progress, even in a brief period, and what power they will exert. And if the sphere of unity be still further widened out, that is, if the inhabitants of a whole country develop peaceable hearts, and if with all their hearts and souls they yearn to cooperate with one another and to live in unity, and if they become kind and loving to one another, that country will achieve undying joy and lasting glory. Peace will it have, and plenty, and vast wealth.
Those are some pretty powerful words. I can almost visualize how those bonds of unity in a city or country can lead to undying joy, peace, and even wealth.
As you're visualizing those bonds of unity, let's remember that it's not easy, and there are often difficulties that we all go through.
Even though I've had a few instances of wanting to give up in the past myself, I found a lot of quotations from The Guardian encouraging us not to give up, even when there are difficulties in a family. The condition you have described prevailing in your family, particularly as it is so seriously affecting your brothers and sisters, is certainly most sad. But while there are certain elements in the situation which you feel powerless to overcome, you should not give up every hope of ameliorating your condition, no matter how gradually. A purely passive attitude can only result in causing you fresh disappointments. You should therefore take courage and, as much as your means and circumstances permit, confidently and persistently endeavor to remedy your family condition.
Yes, there were quite a lot of letters the Guardian wrote to individuals telling them to be patient, to be loving, even with difficulties. Here are a few highlights. He was deeply grieved to learn of your family's difficulties, of your troubles and anxieties, and he would like you not to lose heart, to be patient and confident in the unfailing guidance and help of the Almighty. We have all our petty material obstacles in this life. We cannot totally get rid of them. The best thing to do, after all our efforts have failed to deliver us, is to concentrate on that which can alone bring real happiness and peace to our heart.
To build on that link of real happiness, here's another letter from The Guardian to an individual talking about how to achieve happiness. The fulfillment of our personal ambitions in life is very seldom what brings us happiness. On the contrary, it usually arouses an entire group of new ambitions. On the other hand, when we immerse ourselves in our duties both as human beings, to our families and our associates, and serving it to the best of our ability in the circumstances in which we find ourselves, we begin to know what happiness means.
So, I want to talk about what happens when a marriage fails. Now, we know that while divorce is discouraged by Baha'i law, it is allowed. According to my psychology class, there are a lot of couples out there, even before the pandemic, who had not just one divorce, but even two before they had a chance at making their third marriage work. Here's a quotation that encourages high standards of marriage. The Guardian has long felt that the Baha'is are not, in some cases, living up to the ideal of marriage set forth by Baha'u'llah. They are prone to being influenced by the current light and selfish attitude of the people towards the marriage bond. Consequently, when he sees you are successfully living up to the Baha'i standard, putting your best into it, and preserving this sacred tie you have with your husband, he is very happy indeed. He hopes you will be in a position to be an example to others, for he disapproves of the way some Baha'is, in the name of serving the cause, disencumber themselves of their husbands or go and get new ones.
Let's go back to our outline and see what we've talked about so far. So what have we talked about? We've looked at what constitutes a Baha'i marriage and how to pick a partner who will be our companion for all eternity.
When making decisions, loving consultation is what the guardian recommends. And when it's between two people, and therefore you can't get a majority, taking turns can be necessary when you really can't agree.
We've seen specific roles for family members and specific obligations.
I like the parts that talked about individual rights and responsibilities.
I felt encouraged by the letters that normalized struggles and difficulties and reminded us to keep striving, to keep working on being the best versions of ourselves and continued effort to be of service to others.
We've seen that that unity in a family helps to bring about better outcomes for the family and encourages expanding powers into larger social patterns.
So the family functions as a cornerstone for unity by moving outwards. We start by showing kindness to each other in our immediate family.
Then we use the same strategies and extend that kindness and encouragement to our friends and neighbors.
We are all connected, and we are realizing it over and over again.
Learning these roles in the family is only the beginning of a greater evolution in society. Human evolution had its earliest beginnings in the birth of family life, its subsequent development in the achievement of tribal solidarity, leading in turn to the constitution of the city-state and expanding later into the institution of independent and sovereign nations.
Abdu'l-Baha again talks about how a family is a nation in miniature. He says, compare the nations of the world to the members of a family. A family is a nation in miniature. Simply enlarge the circle of households, and you have the nation. Enlarge the circle of nations, and you have all humanity.
He continues in that same quote to talk about the dangers if fighting and jealousy become pronounced. The conditions surrounding the family surround the nation. The happenings in the family are the happenings in the life of the nation. Would it add to the progress and advancement of a family if dissensions should arise amongst its members, fighting, pillaging each other, jealous and revengeful of injury, seeking selfish advantage? Nay, this would be the cause of the effacement of progress and advancement. So it is in the great family of nations, for nations are but an aggregate of families.
I get why we're talking about family as a cornerstone for unity. Abdu'l-Baha in this next quote again stresses the importance of unity. Consider the harmful effect of discord and dissension in a family. Then reflect upon the favors and blessings which descend upon that family when unity exists. Among its various members, what incalculable benefits and blessings would descend upon the great human family if unity and brotherhood were established?
So when it comes to world peace, it may not be as far removed as we sometimes think.
And 14 months into a pandemic, with all this time together and the unknown still to come, let's continue consulting about how to make our families thrive.
Our families with our grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins.
Our families that include our friends and neighbors, and as Baha'u'llah says, let your vision be world-embracing rather than confined to your own self.
So thank you for joining us again today, and enjoy the rest of your day.